Hello, everyone. My name is Wajahat Karim, and I'm currently speaking from Karachi, Pakistan. It's so good to be here. This is, I guess, my fifth time speaking at Droidcon in Italy and in EMA and Americas. And so I always get fascinated and excited about Droidcon, and there is so much stuff about new Android technologies and it's a great platform to learn. And thank you for being here, and thank you for attending this session. And so today I'll be talking about Jetpack Compose, which you might know that it's an UI library for Android. But now it also supports web and desktop and other platforms as well. And when I started exploring Jetpack Compose, my first thought was that can I make animations and games in this? Because before Jetpack Compose, I was very involved in the UI animations with traditional XMLs and motion layout and transition. So I thought, okay, why not? We should explore Jetpack Compose for animation perspective and see how it differs from the existing platform and what kind of flexibility and easiness it provides as compared to our traditional XML scenarios. So, so these are some of the things which are actually created in Jetpack Compose. You can see here. So there is a lot of stuff from Alex Lockwood, who has created some very amazing, fascinated demos available on GitHub. And then there group precincts repository about some fascinating cookbook which contains a lot of stuff about Jetpack Compose. So if you are new to the Jetpack Compose, these are the perfect places to go ahead and get it started. I also created a simple game, dinosaur game in Jetpack Compose, just to play around that whether I can make it in work with games and or not. So it was very interesting experience. So let's get it started. So due to the size of the time duration, I'll not be able to cover everything in Jetpack Compose about animation, but these are the most highly used and highly important concepts which I'm go through one by one. So let's start first for the animation context size. So you must have seen this pattern that you have some text view and then there is a read more button and you press it and expands into the more content. So for these kinds of things, you can actually use animate content size. So now it's very easy. Let's start by a simple demo that I have two text, short and long text, and I'm just flipping the state on clickable for demo purposes that it will convert between short and long. And now all I have to do is add this one, animate content size. So it's a modifier, and whenever you add it, Jetpack Compose will do that stuff for you. It will actually figure out that what kind of state was before and what kind of state was later. So it will actually figure out that what was the state before and what was the, sorry, one second. Okay, good. That was my toddler. So, so Jetpack Compose will actually do this for you. Like it will calculate the initial size and it will calculate the new size, which will become after the, and it will animate it accordingly. So you don't have to do anything at all. All you have to do is just add this container, add this modifier. And not only that, this not only works with text, this can work with any kind of composable, you name it, whatever kind of changes you want to do. Just remember that you have to provide two states, which one to switch between. This is mostly works on content. So, for example, we have another example of customization that initially before we saw that how we can use the default behavior, but we can actually customize it by providing what kind of train I am using and what kind of easing I want to add, what kind of duration I want to place in, and also I can get the end result in a listener that when the animation was ended and what results I got from start size and end size. So this is mostly about animation, animating the content sizes of different scenarios. So next is the animated visibility. This is one of my personal favorites, and so idea is that animate content size was working based on two different sizes of same composable. But what if you want to play around with some composable who just hides away, who just whose visibility is just set or gone? So you want to animate that particular scenario. For example, we have a floating button with text and icon, and when I want to scroll the screen up, it just hides the text and shows me only the icon. This is a very well-known behavior, and I want to animate it. So first thing I want to add is opt-in experimental animation API, and then we have this typical floating button with a row inside that. It's an icon and text. Now all I have to do is that animated visibility is also an other composable. So I have to wrap that and put every composable which I want to hide animating. So for example, we have a text. So I want to put the text inside the animated visibility container. Now Jetpack Compose will figure out that whether this text should be shown or hidden, and depending on the input value, it will actually animate it accordingly. So for example, I have you want to provide the visibility that whether it's shown or hidden, and Jetpack Compose will do the rest for you. Like it will automatically animate it using the default behavior. And similarly, like Jetpack Compose, you can also actually modify it and customize the animation behavior inside the animated visibility as well. So for example, we have three different animations. First is that I can define the inter transition, that how when the visibility is shown and how that particular composable should come inside the screen. So that is called inter transition. So in this example, I have set it sliding horizontally from right side, and I have set the offset of 300. So it actually comes from the right side, starting from 300 original position, which is 0. So also I can define the transition. So for example, I have used train. I can also use some others, keyframes and bouncing and those sort of animations. Or I can create a much larger animation with more duration. And similarly, we have an exit transition. So here we have exit. So you can see in the bottom picture that text is coming from the right side and then it's going below the screen. So this is how you can customize it more as per your needs and requirements in the animation. So this was about animated visibility. And you can use this animated visibility in the rows, in the columns, in the dynamic lazy rows, lazy columns, and it just worked very fantastic. Also, I created a simple bottom navigation menu with using this concept that whenever a menu is selected, that particular item's text visibility comes into the uh, shown, and the previous selected items visibility just goes away. So using this method and default transition, Jetpack Compose did it for me. All I had to do manage the data that which item text is visible and which item text is not. And it provided me with this beautiful bottom navigation menu with merely 60 to 70 lines of code. So it's very awesome. So um, Now we are going to see about animate star as a method. So idea is that at this point we have seen that how we can animate between different sizes of some composable, and we also see that how we can animate between the visibility of composables. But sometimes we often get opportunity to create animations which are not for any purpose, which are more like fire and forget animation. So, for example, in Twitter, you are liking some tweet and it just pushes you with a very beautiful heart effect animation. So those sort of animations you can actually create with these animate star as a state method. So let's see. So in the previous versions of Jetpack Compose, it was a method called as animate, but then it was deprecated and we were provided with a bunch of these animated color, animated DP, and other these int or offset and different kind of methods. So these methods actually animate whatever it intends to. So for example, animated color as a state will animate a color from one to other for you, and animated DP will animate the DP differences from one state to other state. So let's see an example. So for example, we have two buttons. One changes its colors and the other changes its color and size. So what I do that we have a button and we have a flipping state that we want to change the state from and to. So now, so now usually I use this method. So we have we have a color, and so now what I do is that I define a color, but instead of directly putting color dot blue or color dot green, I actually use the delegate animate color as a state, and I provide that when it should provide me blue and when it should provide me green. So this will give me not only the blue or green color, this will actually give me the transition color. That at first it will give me blue, and then it will give me the whole transition until green, or from green to blue, between all whatever colors lie in between. And I can use that color just the way I always do with my colors. So for example, I have put it in the button colors, background color equal color. So there is no difference. Instead of just putting blue or green, I have just used this animate color as a state method and use its value. It's uh, just like we do normally, but the only difference is that we will get a very beautiful animation of transitioning color. So similarly, I can also use the scale. So for example, we have height and width. So instead of directly assigning 40, 60 width and height, I'm using animate DP as instead, and this will give me the height transition. So for example, this will give me height from 40 to 60. So it will be 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, and until it reaches to 60. And I will use that height inside the my composable, and it will show us that every time height is changing, so every time composable is recomposing, and we get to see this simple animating effect. So that was animate star as state. And similarly, I can also use it with more complex scenarios. So for example, we have two buttons here, and now I am choreographing both as per my needs. So for example, whenever male buttons size is changed, then it also decreases the female button size accordingly. So for example, we have values of female button here that I am saying that if it's female, then set its size to 100, otherwise set its size to 250. And I am also adding the border with width of 0 to 4. And I'm also adding the color from transparent to red. So you can see that which button is selected. It actually comes with a border and a red color, and it increases the same size. And this similar code in the reverse case is put inside the other image. So you can use this method to sort of make a choreography or collaboration between two composables or different composables accordingly. But at some point, this will not work with a lot of composables, or at least it will become a way more complex. So these are some examples of animate star as states. So for example, Group Leasing has created some demos inside its repository Jetpack Compose cookbook. This was the previous example we just saw. And then I also created a simple menu which will bring up all the buttons. So idea was that whenever menu is open, all the five composable menu options X and Y is changed accordingly using the animate integer as a state method. And also, I am showing the transparency of from 0 to 1 and 1 to 0 as per the menu state, whether it's open or closed. So using these concepts and using these Jetpack Compose methods, you can actually manage to create these sort of manual and UI animations. So next is repeated animation. So previously we saw single value animations, and the problem with those animations is that you can't track it or you can't repeat it. And if you need more control about where your animation lies and how it behaves and how it should pause and stop and how it should repeat, then you are provided with another fantastic API called as Animatable. So Animatable is, for example, we will start with a heartbeat demo. So Animatable is a type. So for example, first I want to see that I want two animatables, one for a scale and one for the color. So I store them as a state inside the remember, and I put them the initial value. So initial value I have one, and for color, initial color is red. Now, whenever this heartbeat demo composable comes to the composition, I want to start the animation as soon as this comes into effect. So for that, we have launch effect. Launch effect is a sort of coroutine which will actually run when the composable comes into the composition. So inside that, I say that whenever heartbeat demo becomes active, animation, scale animation should animate to target up to, and I am providing the more, customization. So I am providing that this should be infinite. That means that it will be running continuously, and I am saying that it's a tween of 300, and there is a delay of 1 second. So animation is 300, then 1 second delay, then 300 milliseconds animation, then 1 second delay, and I can provide the repeat mode. So if repeat mode is none, then this is the image you are seeing, that is the repeat mode none. And if it's the repeat mode of reverse, then that animation will repeat, but in the reverse, then it will come back and then it will reverse. So you will actually get to see a heartbeat. So similarly, I'm doing the colors, that I'm providing the target value and I'm providing the animation specification, like how the animation should run. And now animate scale and animate color, these will be the values which I can use inside my own composable. So for example, we have scale inside the modifier of size and color inside the tint. I'm just using it just like normally I do. So this was one example with Animatable. We can actually use it more. So let me show you an example of Canvas. So Canvas is a simple spacer, which allows you to draw anything on it. So in fact, it actually calls a method called a draw behind, which is a modifier on that particular composable. So if you are not using canvas and you want to modify some button or some floating button or some existing composable, then you can actually call the modifier.behind on it directly. You don't need canvas for that. So let's take on canvas and see what kind of API it provides. So canvas, any canvas comes with some built-in functions like draw rectangle over lines or paths or arcs or circles. And if you want to create your own shapes at some point, then you can actually use draw scope.draw my shape. You have to remember that you cannot call any composable inside canvas. So you have to create an extension methods of draw scope and call those inside the canvas. So let's see an example. So for example, I want to create this circle shape. So I have a canvas which is maximum size, and then I want to create some circles inside it. So for example, our first circle is red. So I'm saying that okay, draw a circle with 300 radius, and then draw another with 200, and then draw another with 100, and different colors. So this is what we get. So this is how canvas works. Now let's see that how animatable can work with our canvas to create some more interesting animation. So for example, I want to move a simple square from one place to another place. So we have animatable of animation position X. Its initial value is 0, and then like we learned previously that we have a launch effect, and inside that I'm saying that this should animate to 500 from 0, and this should be repeatable, infinite repeatable, and duration of doing is 1 second. So there is no reverse mode, so it will snap up on the start and then repeat the animation. So now how can I use it? That I am using a simple canvas, and inside the draw I am using draw rectangle of red color. But when I run the application, it will not animate, because for that I have to use the canvas transform. So we have three transforms for the canvas. So we have translation, which is used for moving. Then we have rotation, and then we have scaling. So if I want to draw anything, I have to make sure that whether I am applying the right transform before drawing or not. So for that, I can use the with transform, and inside that I am using translate, and in the translate I am using the above animatables value, animation position X. So now canvas will draw this rectangle not on 0, but on this position, which is coming from this animatable. So animatable is moving from 0 to 500. So we see a square moving from 0 to 500. And using this exact concept, I managed to create a dinosaur game, and Alex Lockwood created more complex examples and animations using this concept that all you have a canvas, and you have some mathematics, and you know that what to draw, when to draw, and how to draw, and then it's all about just calculations and applying more and more transforms on the canvas. So that is the whole idea behind all these examples. So now we understood that how different kind of animations work, but so far we have only or mostly observed about animations on specific one or two composables. But what if I want to create more complex animations with more composables involved? What if I want to create a very heavy kind of animation where I have to choreograph or I have to orchestrate a lot of composables based on my need. So for that we use transitions. So let's see a very common example of floating button. So when you create a floating button, it just expands into it and fills up the whole screen. So for that, let's see. So I have created a simple scaffold. Inside that we have floating buttons, and inside that I have simple exploding fab button composable. So let's see that what this composable provides us. So this is our exploding fab button where we will actually implement the whole functionality of exploding with the animation. So first thing I need is states. So what kind of state we have and how many we have. So at this point we have normal state and we have exploding state. So as per the names, you can understand that normal is for normal floating button and exploding is when the screen is whole full filled. Now I will create a mutable state of this enum size state. So I'm saying that it should be normal at start, and now its value is stored in this fab size state. So after that, I'll create a transition. So for transitions, I have two methods. One is update transition and other is infinite transition. So update transition is about when I want to animate something from one point to other point and I want to control it. That's where you will be using update transition. And if you want to repeat the animation continuously, then you will use infinite transition. So let's see that how update transition used. So in the update transition, I am passing that state and it's by default normal. And now this gives me a reference. And now I will actually apply whatever I want to do inside that reference by using animate method. So I have fab transition dot animate float, animate color, animate DP, and lot of bunch of methods. So I'm saying that okay, on this fab transition, I want to animate float, and it gives me a state. And similarly, I say, okay, I want to also animate a color. So you can add as many as you can, and these all are used for your own purposes. For example, this gives me fab size and fab color. These will be used in the actual composable for the valuation purpose. So let's see that what we can do inside these. So these methods give us a state. So I say, okay, when state is normal, then make the size of 80, and when it's exploded, make the size of 5,000. Similarly, in the colors, I'm say, okay, when it's normal, make the secondary, otherwise primary. So now these variables will save actual values. So for example, fab size variable will give me the transitioning value from 80 to 5,000 when the animation actually starts. So similarly, the color. So that's how we have seen in the previous slides. Now we will actually put our own floating action button, and we have an icon inside it. And now I'm using the previous values of these size and color inside this floating button. So I am changing the state from normal to exploding on click, and then I am using size modifier from the previous fab size button, fab size value, and similarly color is also being used just like that. So this will give us a very good animation. Now if I want to customize it more, like for example, this will give me a transition of from 0 to 80 to 5,000. But if I want to create a bouncing effect, like I want to decrease the size first to create a bouncing effect, then explode it suddenly. So I can add more customization like that. So for example, we had previously fab size and animate float, and inside that we actually figured out that if it's normal, then it's 80 and exploded. But actually I have also variable constructor parameter. It's a transition spec where I can actually define what exactly the spec will be. So by default, it will be a simple tween. So I say, okay, when the state is from normal is transitioning to exploded, then do this. So I'm saying, okay, use keyframes, and keyframe inside that I say it's a 1 second animation. It's at 0, it's 80, at 200 milliseconds, it's 35. So I'm first decreasing the size, then I'm increasing the size. So to create that bouncing effect. And similarly, I can use different easing. So for example, we have fast, slow, and easing. So this is where you actually put more customization of your exact transition from one state to other. So if you have 3 to 4 different transitions, then you will be creating that what happens when you are going from transition A to transition B. So what happens when you are going from transition A to transition C. So this is how your whole transition spec is going to be here inside this code. So this gives us a very simple floating button. You can create more advanced tutorials. So for example, Joe Bach also written an article about how to create a floating button, and Ray Vanderlich provided a tutorial about how to create this button animation where you have a button changing its shape, then you have a text which is hiding or showing accordingly, and then we have an icon which is coming from uh, outline to filled and filled to outline. So this is whole choreography, and you are actually doing it accordingly inside your stage. So I also created a simple flip view where I had two sides and I was animating those two sides at the same time. So it looked like that your card is getting flipped. So Jet Android Studio also provides you animation inspector where you can actually see in the preview that how your animatable, how your transition is being controlled. So you can actually move back and previous, you can actually define these states. So for example, we have idle and we have press. So you can run the animations in slow motion. So this is very handy when you are working with transitions in Android Studio. So finally, we have a question that which animation API to use and when. So, so this is a graph which Jetpack Compose documentation on developer.android.com website is available. So let's see that what it gives us. So you are starting, and if this is an animation of content, then obviously you have two kind of content animation, whether it's visibility or like appearance or disappearance. If it's appearance, then obviously you are going to go with animated visibility. And if it's not appearance, then it means that you are actually changing size of content, color of it, or anything which comes in the so-called content. So you then more figure out that do you want to control this at some point, or you want to just fire and forget. So if you don't want to control, or you just can you want to run it as per, then you have animate content size. And then if you want more control about it, and you want to figure out that what exactly is going to happen and how it's going to happen, then you have animated content or crossfade. So crossfade is mostly used between navigations of screens, and animated content is works like animated visibility. I have not covered this in this slide, but you will get around the concept when you search about it. So now back to our original point that if it's not about content changes in any way, whether it's appearance or sizes, then you come to the decision that whether this is an state-based animation or this is just some random animation which is running. So if it's a state-based animation, then I say, okay, is it infinite or is it normal? Obviously, if it's infinite, then we will use an infinite transition. And if it's not infinite, then I'll think about that whether I have to run multiple composables and multiple values simultaneously. Just we saw in the previous examples of floating button and flip view and rev and delete button, then obviously I'm going with transitions. And if it's not, then if it's just a single composable or single value, then we have these animate star as methods which are very handy and which are very easy to use as compared to transition. So if it's not an state-based animation, then I say, okay, do I need control over this? Then I will use animatable. And also, if it's not controllable, then I'll say, okay, do I have to provide some dynamic data as we did in Canvas? So in Canvas, we were manipulating and calculating different values and providing it to the render engine to figure out that you have to animate it accordingly. So that's where I'll be using animatable. So this may look confusing at this point, but whenever you are working with it, it will become very easy and very simple, because in my experience I have seen that the old XML animations are a bit hard to use and complicated as compared to Jetpack Compose and animation API. So they are very easy. So these are some resources that there are very fantastic pathways about Jetpack Compose on their Google website. And Alex Lockwood has created some animations and some games. And Joe Butch is writing a book about Jetpack Compose. And Gurpreet Singh's demo has been very helpful in all the cases. Leland Richardson is one of the team member behind Jetpack Compose, and he usually does many live streams and explains how Compose works from inside and everything. So these are some resources. And thank you for listening. That's exactly the time for me. Code is available on this link in my GitHub profile, and follow me on Twitter. And thank you for uh, attending this session. And thank you, Droidcon, for providing me the opportunity to speak here. Thank you.